Welcome back. So after this video was somehow an introduction for like what is the listening, and he said it's from 60 to 90 minutes. Pay attention to something. He said like you might have like the extended version or like extra, like not just like three. I'm so sorry, not two, not two lectures, two conversations, two hours. No, maybe three. So why? No, it's somehow every now and then they do the extended one. Okay, so it's not like that we hate you or something like that. No, that's normal. It's okay. It's something like they do every now and then. Okay, now let's go now deep inside and let's get to know each one, and let's get to know what should we do with each one. Okay, now the first thing, purpose. What is the purpose? Purpose is mainly, okay, purpose is mainly is like, for example, why is he saying this, or why is he giving this lecture or whatever. Okay, that's the meaning of purpose. Very nice. So here, like, why did he or she write the say this lecture, talking about what? So technically the purpose is about basic comprehension. Basic comprehension, like, do you understand it or not? That's the question. Do you understand in a good way or not? So it's a choice. So I choose from 4 questions, 4 reasons, and it has 1 point. Now let's listen to something like that has purpose inside. Okay, let's listen to this. Something applied on my computer.
To change the volume,
Okay.
listen to the lecture and answer the question. You must answer each question. You may take notes while you listen. You may use your notes to answer the questions. Click on Continue to begin. Listen to a lecture in a botany class. Today we're going to be talking about insectivorous plants. As you know, we have a field trip. We'll be going to the botanical garden, and we're going to be seeing some insectivorous plants there. Do you understand what insectivorous plants are? Insectivorous plants are plants that trap and assimilate insects in order to sustain life. You may understand the meaning of insectivore from related words such as carnivore or herbivore. A carnivore eats meat, and an herbivore eats plants, while an insectivore devours insects. But unlike carnivores and herbivores, which are animals, the insectivores that we're going to discuss today are plants. All insectivorous plants contain chlorophyll and have roots, so they don't get all of their nutrients from the insects they take in. Insectivorous plants tend to live in soil that lacks enough nitrogen for them to exist, so they consume their insect victims in order to get the nitrogen they need. There are many types of insectivorous plants in the world. There are perhaps 500 known species of insectivorous plants worldwide. Of these many types of insectivorous plants, we're going to look at one of the better known ones in depth. The insectivorous plant that we're going to discuss in detail is the Venus flytrap, which is native to North America. Now, look at the drawing of the Venus flytrap on the screen. The Venus flytrap catches insects by suddenly snapping the ends of one of its trap leaves around an insect. You can see in the diagram that a Venus flytrap has a number of trap leaves, and that each trap leaf is divided into 2 parts. Inside the 2 parts of the trap leaf are 3 sensory bristles. Sensory bristles which resemble tiny hairs. When an insect touches the bristles inside a trap leaf, the 2 surfaces of the leaf shut instantaneously, and the insect trapped inside the parts of the leaf The Venus flytrap then discharges a digestive liquid into the leaf in order to assimilate the insect and obtain the nitrogen the plant needs in order to survive. That's all for today on the Venus flytrap. I hope that from our discussion of the Venus flytrap, you've developed a clearer understanding of how this and other insectivorous plants function. You'll need it for the trip tomorrow. What is the professor mainly discussing?
This piece of listening. Okay, it's something on my computer. We cannot share the screen because of some problems with like the things. So it's mainly listening, so no problem. Let's listen. So this is what we listen to. So it was a lecture. Okay. Now after the prayer, we will come back and continue like how to speak about the purpose and other things. Okay. So be right back. Prayer time. The prayer. Okay. So now, before the prayer, we were talking about something important. Now, we were saying that we had like the listening part, something in the beginning, we have something called the basic comprehension or the purpose. Now, why is he saying this? Why is he doing this? That's the question. Now, let's ask first the question that he asked the professor. So, what is the professor mainly discussing? So, what is the main idea about the thing? Okay, why is he giving this lecture? That's the idea. So the main idea about that thing is what? Okay, insects are that feed on plants, animals that feed on insects, plants that use insects to survive, and insects that are attractive to plants. Now, according to that discussion, so he was saying what? He was saying that okay, some plants use insects to survive. Not just about feeding, like they use insects to survive. That's the idea. Okay, it's not talking about feeding plants and other things. Okay, because the other ones like insects that feed on plants. Okay, he said he was talking about insectivores, and that's something that eats insects. Also, another question that might face you:
why is the professor discussing this topic?
Why? Why is the professor discussing this topic? And we have here, he's lecturing about something that the students will see the next day. He's preparing the students for an exam that is tomorrow. He's explaining something that the students have just seen. He's discussing something that the students will be required to read. Now, in the beginning of this discussion, he said field trip tomorrow. So they will do something tomorrow. So I guess like he is lecturing about something that the students will see the next day. Okay. Now, so again,
what does an insectivorous plant get from an insect?
Insectivorous plants, like from an insect, they take something, and these are the things he said, like while he was explaining the thing. Okay, so how can I answer this question? Yes, I have to take notes. I have to take notes about everything, okay? Now, so he said nitrogen. This is the idea. So technically, when I do the listening part, so it's like this. Technically, when I do the listening part, so it's like this. I have to know the purpose through his own words. That's the idea. Very nice. So I get to know the purpose. Why is he giving this lecture? What's happening? What's in the lecture? What is he talking about? So that's the first thing. So the first thing we talk about is the purpose. Now, the second thing we talk about is some details from that thing. Now, the basic comprehension is about having the purpose. Now, how about if I want to know details? Details after that, like the things that he talked about, okay? Now, what are... Sorry.
Listen to a lecture in a botany class. You must answer...
Excuse me, sorry. Okay, so, give me a second. Now, so, as we said, like we listen to the purpose first, then we listen to details. Now, some details like what? Like the question I asked. He said that the plants, what do the plants take from? Insects, and insects take from plan. So these are details, things that he said. Right? So there's something called note taken. We will discuss note taken and how to take notes in the upcoming slides, inshallah. Now, so that question for details, that has 1 point. Then we have another kind of question. So, interference.
Welcome to the
Now,
English
what is
Simple
interference?
Notes video.
Interference that, for
In
example,
this particular video, we're going to go over the two main structures for note-taking on the TOEFL IBT. With the English Simple program, when you learn these note structures and apply them to the test, it's going to make your test so much easier. So it's very, very important that we learn and we master this particular lesson. Now, the most important thing with your note-taking on the TOEFL IBT is that your notes be simple and that they be consistent. Consistent means to do the same thing over and over again. The idea is that once you learn how to do the notes, you will always do the same notes for every single question and every single section of the TOEFL IBT. It's really the key to mastering the TOEFL, consistent and simple notes. Now, the note-taking strategy that we're going to teach is useful on all 4 sections of the TOEFL IBT. There's 2 main types of notes, only 2, so it's pretty simple. And the 2 note structures, the first one we're going to talk about is very good for both the speaking and the writing section. And that note structure is what we call the outline structure. The outline structure has this format. There's a main idea, and then you have supporting ideas or examples which support that main idea.
All of these, like for example, professor might imply to them.
Let me make it a little bit more simple. Let's say that you're at a party and someone is telling you something, a story, or that they like pizza. It'd be very, very easy to keep track of that information because it's coming from one source. For this kind of a situation, we use the outline structure because there's only one source of information. Now, let's say you're at a party and you talk to a lot of people and they're all telling you different things. It would be very, very difficult to keep all that information straight because there's so many different sources of information. When there's more than one source of information, we use what's called the column format. The column format is a way to keep track of different sources of information.
Continue to begin. Listen to 2 students discussing a zoology course. Now we can move on to discuss the next part of the chapter, the part on land tortoises.
Yes. Land tortoises are tortoises that don't live in the water, although they may live near the water. They only come to the water to drink or bathe. Oh, look here in the book. Here's a picture of one of the 40 kinds of land tortoises.
Land tortoises are the ones that live to such long ages, aren't they?
Yes. My favorite part of the chapter was the part that was about how long land tortoises can really live.
How old can they live to be?
It's not really known for sure. There are lots of traditional stories about tortoises that lived for hundreds of years. I do remember hearing, when I was young, about tortoises that were supposed to be 1 to 200 years old.
Oh, that couldn't be. No way.
Well, there are a lot of stories, but there are no accurate records, so it's impossible to verify whether or not they're true.
Well, how old is the oldest tortoise on record? You know?
In the chapter I just read, it said that the oldest tortoise whose age can be verified to some extent is the one known as Marion's tortoise.
I read that Marion's tortoise was 152 years old.
Actually, I think the book said it was at least 152 years old. It was probably older.
So they're not really certain how old Marion's tortoise really was when it died. What is truly known about Marion's tortoise?
It's certain that a French explorer named Marion Dufresne, captured an adult tortoise in 1766, and he transported the tortoise to the island of Mauritius in that same year.
Well, when did Marion's tortoise die? Are there authentic records?
Historians are satisfied with the authenticity of the records that show that Marion's tortoise died in 1918.
How do they know it was the same tortoise? Could it have been a different tortoise that died there in 1918?
Tortoises don't occur naturally on Mauritius, so Marion's tortoise was the only tortoise on the island of Mauritius.
And so this tortoise had been on the island of Mauritius for 152 years when it died.
That's right. Marion's tortoise arrived in Mauritius in 1766 and died in 1918, so that would make it at least 152 years old.
But didn't you say that the tortoise that was captured and brought to Mauritius by Marion Dufresne was an adult when it was captured?
Yes. So Marion's tortoise was known to have lived for 152 years on Mauritius, but because it was an adult and it was captured in 1766, and it's unclear how old it was at that time, it could have been considerably older than 152 years when it died, maybe 180 years or more. 200 years old for this type of tortoise isn't inconceivable.
So a tortoise living to the age of 200 may be possible, but there are no verified records of such a tortoise.
Exactly.
Why does the man say this? Now we can move on to discuss the next part on land tortoise.
So that, why did he say that in that zoology? What's the tortoise? Tortoise is like a turtle, okay? You know the turtle? Ninja turtles, the turtle. Okay, so why did he say this? Let's play it again.
Now we can move on to discuss the next part of the chapter, the part on land tortoise.
Why did he say that? Now we can move on to the next part of our chapter. So the choices are like this: to indicate the next topic for the discussion, to suggest a new location for the discussion, to state what has previously been said, to clarify why they are having the discussion. Now we can move on. So move on, that means what? Continue. Very nice. So that means they're going to, very nice. The next topic, so it's the first one. Now to indicate the next topic for the discussion. Go next.
Listen again to part of the conversation.
Listen to that part again.
And answer the question.
There are lots of traditional stories about tortoises that lived for hundreds of years. I do remember hearing when I was young about tortoises that were supposed to be 1 to 200 years old.
Oh, that couldn't be. No way. How does the man seem to feel when he says this? That couldn't be. No way.
So, he didn't say it like, what will you understand from this? Huh? Unhappy, incredulous, incapable, disturbed. Now, so let's think about them. So if we thought about unhappy, was he unhappy? No. Okay. Was he disturbed? No. Was he incapable? That means he cannot do it? No. So even if you don't know what's the meaning of if incredulous, because it's somehow not like a common word, incredulous. So now, I'm so sorry, incredulous. Incredulous coming from, it's not common, but it's coming from, yes, he's like, whoa, I cannot believe it, or something like that. So this is incredulous, okay? Let's go with next question.
Listen again to part of the conversation, then answer the question.
In the chapter I just read, it said that the oldest tortoise whose age can be verified to some extent is the one known as Marion's tortoise.
I read that Marion's tortoise was 152 years old.
Actually, I think the book said it was at least 152 years old.
Why does the woman say this?
Actually, I think the book said it was at least 152 years old.
So, at least 152 years old. So, why did she say this? So, to restate what the man said, to correct an error by the man, to indicate that she's not sure what is correct, to contract it what was in the book. So to say what? What is she doing? He said something and she wanted to correct him. So she was correcting the man, you understand? So he said, like I said, they live 250. No, at least. Okay, so this is the idea, at least they live for that long. Okay, let's go to the next question.
Listen again to part of the conversation. Then answer the question.
Historians are satisfied with the authenticity of the records which show that Marion Tortoise died in 1918.
How do they know it was the same tortoise? Could it have been a different tortoise that died there in 1918? What does the man mean when he says this? How do they know it was the same tortoise? Could it have been a different tortoise that died there in 1918?
So, now, why did he say this? What was said sounds plausible. Okay, Marion Tortoise was not on the island of Mauritius. They may be an alternative explanation. There was only one tortoise on the island. Okay, so why did he say this? Okay, they didn't say anything about one tortoise in the island, so that is wrong. Okay, now there may be an alternate explanation. So what's that? And Marion Tortoise was not on the island. They didn't say anything about that was not in the island. Okay, what was said sounds plausible. Doesn't sound plausible, but he was saying that maybe there is another alternate explanation. Maybe she was not the turtle that we were talking about. So it's maybe another explanation for the same thing.
Listen again to part of the conversation. Then answer the question.
Yes. So Marion Tortoise was known to have lived for 152 years on Mauritius, but because it was an adult and it was captured in 1766, and it's unclear how old it was at that time, it could have been considerably older than 152 years when it died, maybe 180 years or more. 200 years old for this type of tortoise isn't inconceivable.
Which sentence best describes how the woman feels when she says this?
200 years old for this type of tortoise isn't inconceivable.
So, which sentence? I'll read the sentences. It's possible for the tortoise to live for 200 years. A tortoise could not possibly live to the age of 200. No 200 years old tortoise has ever been found. Many types of tortoise live to be very old. So, what's that? She was implying that it's possible for a tortoise to live 200 years. And that's one part of a question. That's one part of pragmatic question. So it relies on what? Relies on understanding. Okay? He's not going to say directly, but do you understand what is he or she talking about or not? So next. Okay. So you choose from 4 possible answers. As we said, that the answers I was saying that, and it has 1 point. Now let's read that example. Why does the man say this? Yeah, but still, he thinks that the professor will notice if the student was absent. He agrees with the woman, okay, about the attendance policy. He wants to change the subject that they are discussing. He tries to encourage the woman to explain her opinion. Okay, so why did he say this? And these are the questions, the same as what we gave in the example. Okay, go next. Main idea. Now, so here we talk about the purpose. Main idea about that thing. Okay, what's the main idea? What is he or she trying to discuss? That's the question. That's a question we need to answer. What is he or she trying to discuss? So that's what's the main idea. So you choose from 4 possible answers. One of the answers, as we agreed, we have 4 possible answers. One of them is somehow not related to the topic at all, or something like very crazy to be actually discussed in the same topic. The third answer, it has a false information. Something was not mentioned in that thing. 2 answers are close to each other. One of them has like a small difference you have to pay attention to. Okay? So, as he said, yes, it's found in the beginning, but you have to pay attention and to focus with that. Let's move on. Okay. So what's written here? He says, if the above method doesn't provide an answer, most often this happens in lectures and questions, look for an answer choice that expresses the whole idea of the lecture. Meaning, sometimes he or she didn't say that answer like inside the lecture. So look for something that has like a whole idea. Don't pick a choice that expresses only a small detail. Meaning, for example, let's say this. Now, I said, like, for example, insectivores are like the plants that eat insects. And we'll talk about reproducing this insect, the reproduction, how do they reproduce themselves. And also we talk about how do they feed on insects. And one of the choices was like this, okay? This thing was talking about how the insectivores feed on something. So this thing, they were talking about this. So, is this correct? No, that's not correct. Why? Because that's a small detail about that thing. So that was one of the things that he or she talked about. Okay? It was not the true thing. True thing that he's talking in general about insectivores, not about this detail. So pay attention from choosing the details. Because sometimes they put some details to mess with you. Okay? So that's the thing I'm talking about. We will find two. One of them is like inside the thing, but it's not the correct answer. That's why I give you a detail and I tell you this is the main idea. Of course not. Because if the main idea was talking about how insectivores feed, okay, so why did he mention how did they reproduce? Reproduction or breeding, why did he mention that? That's the idea. So next. Organization. Now, it asks you to recognize the, for example, the structure, the intellectual structure of lecture, of part of a lecture. Now, for example, chronological order, steps in sequence, cause and effect and comparison. Now, so the order is like this. It's the cause, effect, and comparison about something. Okay? Let's take something like this.
To change the volume, click listen to a lecture in an American history class.
Good evening, class. Well, tonight we'll begin our discussion of the colonial period of American history. During this period, people in North America lived in colonies under the authority of the King of England. By definition, a colony is a group of people living in a distant land, but remaining under the jurisdiction of their native land. So tonight, we'll look at the three kinds of American colonies before the American Revolution: royal colonies, proprietary colonies, and corporate colonies. The first type of American colony was a royal colony. A royal colony was directly under the control of the King of England. Although none of the 13 colonies began as a royal colony, by the time of the Revolutionary War in 1775, 8 of the colonies had become royal colonies: Georgia, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, New Jersey, New York, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Virginia were all royal colonies, directly subject to the King of England. The second type of American colony was a proprietary colony. A proprietary colony was under the control of an individual, the proprietor. The proprietor was given a grant to govern a colony by the King of England. By 1775, only 3 of the colonies remained proprietary colonies: Delaware, Maryland, and Pennsylvania. And the last type of American colony was a corporate colony. These colonies were governed under a charter received from the King of England by a company's stockholders. Only 2 colonies, Connecticut and Rhode Island, could be considered corporate colonies. These colonies were founded by groups of colonists in America, not by English